Welcome back to the OK Not OK podcast. I am Dr. OK, and yet again, it is time for Who's Next, where I say who should be next for each of the main roster titles in WWE. And if you're thinking we just did this a couple weeks ago, you are correct, because I do this after every premium live event. And while I guess Saturday night's main event is not quite premium, it was still a pretty big live event. So we're going to go to this well one more time in 2024. But don't think that this does not deserve it, because we do this on Thursdays after a PLE, and that means we also include Raw after the PLE in our calculations here. So that means we have only had a couple SmackDowns, a couple Raws, and a Saturday night's main event. So in those 5 events, we somehow have had 6 title matches out of 20 total matches. And then on top of it, if you include the additional women's IC or US non-title matches in the tournament, that gets us up to 11 out of 20 total matches have been for a title of some sort. So that is 55% of the matches. So we have a lot to talk about still. So with that, why don't we just get right onto it and start, as always, with our Raw Championships. So we will start with the World Heavyweight Championship, which was defended by Gunther at Saturday night's main event against both Finn Balor and Damian Priest, and neither of those names are going to show up today. So who should be the number 1 contender for the World Heavyweight Championship? We're going to go with Seth Rollins. That is not a change from just a couple weeks ago. Even though he had no matches in that time, he did defeat Sami Zayn on December 2nd, which was the Raw right after Survivor Series. So he is 2-1 in one-on-one matches in his most recent return, so he deserves to be at number 1. And at number 2, we're going to add him back in here since he's returned. It's Drew McIntyre. He picked up a win also against Sami Zayn at Saturday night's main event. So he's right back in there with a good record at 10-5 in one-on-one matches. But who shouldn't be? Well, based on the previous 2 people, it's pretty obvious that that is Sami Zayn. He is sadly just 1-5 in one-on-one matches since SummerSlam, so it's safe to say he's not going for a title anytime soon. And on the women's side, the Women's World Championship, we still have Liv Morgan with a surprisingly clean victory against Io Sky at Saturday night's main event. So who's the number 1 contender? You know that it's mommy, Rhea Ripley. She is up 1 spot since a couple weeks ago. She defeated Raquel Rodriguez in a one-on-one match, and she was already named the number 1 contender by Adam Pearce, which makes sense since she is 5-1 in one-on-one matches this year. At number 2, she just switched places with Rhea. Io Sky, she's got a drop after losing to Liv, but she's still an impressive 7-3 in one-on-one matches, and that was her first loss in a one-on-one match since May, so it's really hard to argue to drop her farther than this, since there are just not a lot of choices here. But who shouldn't be a top contender? We're going with Raquel Rodriguez. She lost both of her singles matches over the last 2 weeks, which were her first singles matches since she returned. So she's just 2-3 in those matches on the year. Up next is the men's Intercontinental title, which was just successfully defended by Braun Breaker on Raw against Ludwig Kaiser this past week. And with only 1 other non-title singles match in the last couple of weeks on the men's side on the Raw roster, being McIntyre against Zayn, well, there's not really anything we can do about changing the contenders here. So Jey Uso remains our number 1 contender. He was taken out by Drew McIntyre just a couple weeks ago, but that's not long enough to get dropped here. He's still 12-6 in one-on-one matches and 1-1 against Breakker, so if they want to finish a trilogy to determine who really deserves to be the IC champ, that would be pretty appropriate. And at number 2, still hard to believe, but it's still the truth. Yep, R-Truth still is in that slot due to the lack of matches, and since Bad Blood, I'll repeat the crazy statistic, he's the only man on the Raw roster with 2 or more one-on-one wins while also having 0 one-on-one losses. And that includes both Braun Breakker and Gunther. So pretty rarefied air there for R-Truth. So maybe we should just give him a shot. And who shouldn't it be? Easy answer, Ludwig Kaiser. He never should have gotten a chance to begin with, but he did not only get 1 shot, he had 2 title matches against Braun Breakker. Our old adage doesn't apply here because if you give someone a shot that doesn't deserve it, they just might win. But fortunately, Kaiser did not win, and he now has lost 9 out of his last 10 singles matches. On the Women's Intercontinental Championship, we of course do not yet have a champion, as we're slowly making our way through the first round with 1 match per week, and we've only gotten through 3 of those 4 first round matches. So here our standard is to be a top 2 contender, you must have won in your first round match, so there's only 3 choices. And to not be a top contender, you simply have to be someone who's remaining, so there are only 4 total choices there. So with that, let's get to it. Number 1, Lyra Valkyria. Easy pick here. She's the only woman on this list with more than 2 one-on-one wins on the year. She is 5-4. Plenty good to be at number 1. She will face the winner of whoever wins next week on Raw. At number 2, we're going to go with Zoe Stark ahead of Doktor O'Kay, as Zoe just won this past week, and she has an identical 2-4 one-on-one record and 2-4 multi-person singles record. 4 total singles wins, plenty good to be number 2. And who shouldn't be a contender? Well, I don't like to give the same name twice in a row, and last time we went with Alba Fire, and we don't know what Kairi Sane's status is after getting injured by the Pure Fusion Collective on Raw this past week. So that leaves us with 1 option, and it's Natalya, and she's just 1-6 in all singles matches, so yeah, she doesn't really deserve to be a contender, so can't argue with it. And lastly for Raw, we go to the World Tag Team Championships, which we have a new champion in the War Raiders defeating the Judgment Day just this past week on Raw. So who should be their new number 1 contenders? Well, it's the same team that was number 1 on our list a couple weeks ago, the Creed Brothers. They did not have a new match, but they have won 4 out of their last 5 and are above 500 at 4-3 in traditional tags. So that means they should be ahead of the team that actually just lost, the Judgment Day. They are only 3-4 in traditional tag matches, despite holding the title for 175 days, where they only had 2 defenses, but they are 1-1 against the War Raiders, so just like the IC title, if we want to have a trilogy of matches, they might deserve another shot. And who shouldn't get another shot? Since we try to change it up, we're going with the LWOs, Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee. They are 2-2 in all tags, but lost both of their last 2, so they should probably win a match or 2 before they get back into the rankings. And on SmackDown, we will start with the Undisputed WWE Championship, which was retained by Cody Rhodes at Saturday night's main event over Kevin Owens. But then Owens did that package pile driver and sent Rhodes to the hospital. So who knows when Cody will be back. But I guess we'll still talk about some contenders. And speaking of pile drivers, number 1 is still going to be Randy Orton in his memorial capacity. We've not seen him since KO pile drivered him, but he is 8-2 in one-on-one matches, and that's plenty good for now. But at number 2, we will still go with KO, even though he is taking everybody out, because even though he's right, he probably shouldn't be doing this. That said, he did lose to Rhodes, but he decided to steal the Winged Eagle Championship, so he's gonna defend that, I guess, for no real reason. Nonetheless, he had the victory against Rhodes, but of course, Rhodes knocked out 2 separate referees, so KO could not get the 3 count that he deserved to get. So unfortunately, this one goes into his loss column. He's at 4-4-1, 1-on-1, but we just can't move him down after that. And who shouldn't be a contender, we will have to go to Solo Sikoa. He took a DQ loss to LA Knight, which is how he usually loses his matches. And so that drops him to 2-7-1, 1-on-1. But even though he shouldn't be on this list, he still should have the Ulafala, so he'll go into tribal combat against Roman Reigns in a couple weeks. On to the WWE Women's Championship, still held by Nia Jax. She is not defended in a month or so. But we do have a new number 1 contender for her, which is Bianca Belair, because after Jade Cargill got injured, Bianca's had some extra time to have some one-on-one matches, and she's won both of them. So she's at an impressive 8-2 on the year, so she's right back in there at number 1. So that means dropping 1 spot will be Bayley, and she lost to Chelsea Green in the US title semifinals, which is not very impressive, but making it to the semifinals is better than just about anyone else, so I guess her 8-4-1 record will still easily keep her at number 2. And who shouldn't be on this list, we'll go with Tiffany Stratton yet again. Good thing she is Miss Money in the Bank, and good thing she won her triple threat match in the first round of the US title tournament, because she then lost to Michin in the semifinals, which gives her 7 straight losses in one-on-one matches, so she is down to 5-7-1. Wow, what a shocking fall. Okay, so we'll go to the Men's United States Championship, which was won by Shinsuke Nakamura at Survivor Series, and he has not yet defended it, so number 1 will still be LA Knight as the top contender. He certainly deserves a rematch. He got that DQ win against Solo Sikoa last week, and he's won 10 out of 11 one-on-one matches, so he certainly deserves another chance. And at number 2, we will go with the newest member of SmackDown coming over from the transfer portal. It is the monster among men, Braun Strowman, and he made Carmelo Hayes look awfully silly out there, and he picked up a very quick victory, and he goes to 5-1 in one-on-one matches. Really impressive, so he's vaulting right into that number 2 spot. So who shouldn't be a contender, that'll be Braun's opponent, Carmelo Hayes. He amazingly is 0-4-1 in his last 5 matches now, so making it to Game 7 of his series against Andrade apparently has done him no good whatsoever. So we'll go to the Women's United States Championship, and sure enough, we have a new champion, Chelsea Green, first ever Women's United States Champion. Hard to even believe, but here we are at the end of 2024. So yeah, Chelsea needs a number 1 contender, and we will go with Michin, who she just beat on Saturday night's main event. But we don't have a lot of choices here. Have to say, going to the finals of the tournament is pretty good, so that should get you for something. And to get to the finals, she won 5 matches in a row, which is way better than mostly anyone else could even think about getting, so we will easily keep her at number 1. And maybe some of that is at number 2. We're putting in Candice LeRae here. We just don't have many options, because if we remove anyone from the WWE Women's Championship, as well as Naomi, who we'll talk about here in a moment, that leaves us with absolutely no one else on the SmackDown roster who has more than one one-on-one win on the year. So Candice's 2 wins on the year are enough to make her the number 2 contender. And who shouldn't be a contender? Well, it could be pretty much anybody, but we will go with Chelsea's good buddy, Piper Niven. And she is great at doing Chelsea's dirty work to get her a championship, but Chelsea cannot reciprocate those favors as Piper is an astounding 0-11 in all singles matches this year. But that takes us to the 2 tag team championships. First, the WWE Tag Team Championships, where we have a new tag team champion with DIY, defeating the Motor City Machine Guns a couple weeks ago, with Johnny Gargano completely turning on the Machine Guns with a low blow and then meeting Ciampa in the middle. So they tricked him, and they are your new 2-time WWE Tag Team Champions. But we will leave the Machine Guns as the number 1 contender here. They didn't even think they were going to be facing DIY a couple weeks ago when they thought it was going to be the Street Profits as the number 1 contender. But they had to change on the fly, and they were tricked on the fly. So they fall to 4-2 in all tags, but that is certainly good enough to deserve a rematch. And at number 2, it will still be the Street Profits. They certainly deserve to stay here since they were the ones that were actually supposed to get that tag team title shot. And unfortunately, they were taken out backstage, so they couldn't get it. But they have won 2 matches in a row, including against the Machine Guns. And with a 6-5 traditional tag record, that's good enough to be on the list. But who shouldn't be on this list? We're going to go back to A-Town Down Under. They finally showed back up to try to get an interview with Braun Strowman for this week's Grayson Waller Effect, and they were successful in that at least. But where they have not been successful is in tag team matches, as they've amazingly lost 8 of their last 9. And lastly, the Women's Tag Team Championships, with Jade Cargill being injured and with Nick Aldis trying to strip Bianca of the titles. Well, I guess we have a new champion with Naomi stepping in to take Jade's place, and she will defend the titles with Bianca tomorrow on SmackDown against Candice and Nia. But who should be the number 1 contender? It is Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, because they've won 1 match. They are 1-2 in all tags. But of the remaining available teams, because the team of Bayley and Naomi is now knocked out, since Naomi is now a champion, I guess, they're the only available team that has a win in the last month. So, yeah, Liv and Raquel, number 1. And that means number 2 will be the team that's actually getting a chance, Candice LeRae and Nia Jax. And like Liv and Raquel, they have the 2nd most recent win of any available team. As you can see, the pickings are awfully slim here. So yeah, we'll put them at number 2, and I guess they just might be tag team champions after this Friday SmackDown. But who shouldn't be a contender here? I'd say anybody else, but we'll officially go with Nia yet again, and then also this time with Tiffany Stratton, because they have actually had a couple matches in the last few months, but yeah, they lost both of those, so they're 0-2 over that time. So they don't get a chance. We'll give Candice that chance over Tiffy. And although I made Drew McIntyre the number 2 contender for the World Heavyweight Championship, it doesn't look like he'll be going after the title for just a little bit, as he has his sights set on Roman Reigns and the OG Bloodline. But why is McIntyre going after them right now? Which is what I answered in the OK question of the week. So if you missed that, make sure to go to that video right on over here right now, because if you don't go there right now, that is certainly not okay.